Well, welcome to the latest edition of Founders Talk. One of my favorite people in Orlando, Florida, Jeanette. Jeanette, like the thing about Founders Talk is that we want to use this as an opportunity to highlight individuals in Orlando who we feel like make this place special. Because at Rally, what we're trying to do is transform this place into an international hub for social entrepreneurship, where any social entrepreneur in the early stages of their journey, we want to say, hey, Orlando's a place where you should stop, and you're one of the reasons why they should stop here, right? And so thank you for joining myself and Ben today for this edition of Founders Talk. So Jeanette, let's get into it real quick. Let's you and I have a history that goes all the way back almost I feel like almost 10 years now. But for the sake of the audience, I just want to talk about a little bit about who you are and how let's talk about who you are and bridge that all the way over to Jay's Everyday Fashion, because then we'll go through the other things that you're involved in. But just tell us about yourself.
Well, it's interesting that you put it that way, because I feel like we so often answer who you are in terms of what you do. I feel like it's so ingrained in us. Like I automatically want to launch into my resume because I'm like,
right.
What descriptors are you looking for? I feel like what I'm doing and the passion behind it is so much of who I am, and it's difficult to separate the two. So
yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you want me to?
Well, I think what's good for these conversations is understanding. So there was a motivation that you had when you started Jay's Everyday Fashion. It just didn't pop out of anywhere, right? Yeah. There were a series of events and things that took place that ultimately drove you there. So if you can give us just kind of like what happened in the beginning of that story that ultimately led you to Jay's Everyday Fashion, and that would be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. So I was in my 20s, and this was 10 years ago. So imagine, I like to say it's the internet when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, and we didn't have Instagram yet or even Pinterest. And I heard of the idea of blogging, and I actually studied journalism in college. And I thought, man, this is such a neat opportunity for fashion to become more of a democracy. Like, I want to see pictures of people just in their everyday outfits. And that sounds insane because that was not something you could find on the internet, not even 10 years ago. But I just thought, I swear someone else is going to want to see this. And I couldn't find it. I could find, at the time, I think there were 2 fashion blogs I found, and they both looked like Vogue. And I thought, this seems repetitive. We already have Vogue. And so I literally grew up surrounded by Kansas farms on dirt road and know nothing about fashion is the way I looked at it, but I had a sort of blossoming interest in it. And I literally just set up my point and shoot camera and took a bunch of pictures and started a Facebook page pretty much in the same day I had the idea, because I just felt like there's got to be other people like me who are looking for great deals and who just want to see ideas for what to wear to just work.
Right.
And things you would never find in a fashion magazine, because they're like my $20 score from Banana Republic with a pencil skirt, it just wasn't something you could find.
Right.
And sure enough, this very much resonated with women. As we know now, everyone posts pictures of their outfits, which I think is amazing. And it just completely took off. Yeah. And I think, Kyle, that's around the time you and I met. And as you know, it truly was like a tsunami in my life, because I had no idea that could ever be a job. I always felt like I would have never in a million years thought that I was an entrepreneur or that I would be one. It just was not something, I grew up in a family that's mostly blue collar. I was one of the first to go to college. And so I thought, I'm going to go to my marketing job, and the 9 to 5 is what I wanted. It was safe. Right. It's where I pictured myself forever, climbing the corporate ladder. And it completely knocked me off my feet. I think the only reason I wound up blogging full time is actually because the recession hit around 2011. I got laid off and could not find another job in Orlando in marketing. And out of pure desperation, I found a gig with Visit Florida that was 10 hours a week that would pay my rent. And it was writing about shopping. So it was kind of adjacent, but not really the same
Yeah.
subject. And I said, I'm going to give it 1 year. I signed a 1 year contract and I'm going to figure out if I can make this blog into a business, because I had several people sit me down and say, you can do this as a business. And I was like, Googling, how do blogs make money? But to give you an idea, I mean, I had like 15 million views a year. We're not talking about small amount of traffic. I just had no idea that you could monetize that or what that
Right.
looked like.
Right.
So once I started applying those tools to what I was already seeing, it exploded, and I was making insane amount of money, and especially in my 20s. And I just was like, I guess I'm doing this now. I mean, the whole thing was so surreal and so bizarre to me. And I went from, let me start this thing where I'm, showing, and I would always show like outfit fails, and it was very, relatable to
Uh-huh.
a few years later, once the blogging industry changed, I was, full-time blogging, working with brands all the time, Macy's, Nordstrom, Kohl's,
Yeah.
JCPenney, repeat, just all
Yeah.
these contracts with them. And it was not lost on me at any moment how ironic that is, and
Yeah.
how fascinating that is. That,
Yeah. I
yeah,
wanna I wanna before you go any further in there, I wanna get back to what was the reason that you said originally that you had wanted to see more pictures of people dress like in everyday stuff, and there was something when you're looking at the other sites that it wasn't there. What, like why was that important to you?
it's interesting. I love this saying. I don't remember who said it. It was at a conference somewhere, but they said every entrepreneur wants to change the world, and they're just crazy enough to believe that they can do it.
Mm,
And I really felt like I just wanted fashion to be more of a democracy. I just thought it was something that I was really starting to explore. I was very much a late bloomer into fashion. I did not experiment with it really at all until right before I started blogging.
right.
And I wanted to encourage people like me who grew up, having to shop at thrift stores, and who still currently loves getting a good deal at Ross, to feel confident about that. And I think I was just looking for a community that of like-minded people who were,
Yeah.
budget shoppers and proud of it, and
Yeah.
um, just something different, because I still really enjoy fashion magazines, but it's just so fantasy based. I was just so craving something different.
Yeah.
And
You said a while to me before, like you said something about everyday women who were like moms and just trying to
mhm,
make things happen, and they would look at this stuff and it was so unattainable, and they wanted to feel good about themselves. They wanted to be able to go on a date, and so you felt like part of missionally what you're trying to accomplish was making those styles accessible to them within their budget, and that was very missional for you. So can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, I think, in the very beginning days, I remember some of my very first posts were about different sales that were going on, or deals, which were much harder to find then. I mean, it's so
Hmm.
funny how different things are. But I really felt like this was a service I could provide to women to make their lives easier, and truly be kind of their personal shopper online, and help them find good things and help them feel amazing. I think that there's truly a soulful connection for me with just in general the area of women's beauty, and just truly wanting to make women feel so amazing and so worth it. And I think that's just always kind of been one of my things. I'm not sure why even, I haven't really
Right.
quite put my finger on it, but I do think it's always been about, like you said, encouraging people and just helping them feel amazing. Because when you look good, you feel good on some level. I'm
Yeah.
speaking from this, having been in pajamas during quarantine for like a month, or paint clothes. So I'm not always looking my best these days, but that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay
that's
too.
okay.
It's not about, it's not, and that's the thing, it's not ever about that's how you achieve that is by having a cute outfit. It's like,
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with that. But it's like, if that makes you feel good and you want to do it and you want to explore it and play with it, I think encouraging women to go there. And I think another part of the journey, which I sort of unpacked later, was I realized that I actually had a lot of sort of religious guilt about aesthetics and fashion. I grew up in the type of household where you just don't spend time and money on what you wear and
yeah,
how you look. And it took a really long time for me to sort of make the connection of, I actually set a clothing budget for myself. I lived in Boston at the time because I wasn't spending enough money on work clothes and it was detrimental to my career. I was like constantly embarrassed. I was cold because it's Boston. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I have this money. So I set a clothing budget and I said, you're not allowed to feel guilty within this budget. Like, you've got to cut this out.
right.
And that was how I discovered I liked fashion. And it scared the crap out of me because I thought this is off limits. Like,
Yeah,
well, I should not be enjoying this. And people automatically, like at work, started complimenting my outfits. I was totally freaked out. And so I guarantee there was a part of my brain when I started of trying to sort of justify what I was doing. Like, I'm going to make this into something that helps someone else so I don't feel so guilty about it. And that I think I was also trying to work through my own feelings of guilt while also really enjoying it at the same time. And it
yeah,
was just a crazy,
yeah,
you know, I don't think I couldn't really see that at the time. It took me a while. It took me a
yeah.
really long time. Actually, I wrote a book about that, kind of reconciling faith and fashion, and it didn't come out until 2017. So it was like 7 years after I started. It took me a long
Wow.
time to really understand how big of a part of the journey that was for me, and I do think it was a huge part of it.
Yeah,
I like that start, just the start to your story. The thing that stuck out to me, or a couple of them, was one that you found a low cost, low risk way to just start. And I
Yeah.
think that that so much of the entrepreneurs at the very beginning is getting the ball rolling on momentum and finding the right incremental way to begin. And then what you had, because you were so motivated by a clear purpose of this thing is missing and I know that I need it, then because you were doing it for free, it was just a thing that you believed in. And it was like a long customer discovery curve. So that once you were ready to look at it as a business, you had done all of this exploration about who is my market, what do they want. And I think sometimes when we jump right to starting the business, we can naturally skip those steps. We can downplay our passion perspective because we think we just got to do what will make money. And we can skip the customer discovery and assume we know what people want and what they'll pay for. And so I love that because of the way it started for you, you kind of describe it as an accident. But I like that it started the way that we try and push entrepreneurs to is be very grounded in the thing that you're passionate about and take the time to understand and learn about the customer that's out there. And you did both of those. So it makes sense that it grew into a business that worked. It just happened kind of intuitively for you. And sometimes that's the most fun way to do it. So cool. It's great.
yeah. So Jeanette, I want to talk about, so at some point you were working and you said in this conversation that this thing, Jay's Everyday Fashion, turned into some people were saying this is a business. Talk about the moment when you said, okay, I'm gonna pull, like what would for you, what needed to be in place for you to say, I'm going to focus on this full time, the Jay's Everyday Fashion. Can you talk to?
I would say what needed to happen was absolute desperation.
Oh, okay.
I was not wanting to be an entrepreneur. Like, nothing about this lifestyle most attracted to me at the time.
Yeah.
It was truly, I could not, like, during the recession in 2011 in Orlando, there weren't even marketing jobs to apply for. I mean, it was
Mm,
because everyone was laying off their marketing team. That was like the
right.
first thing to go. And so I truly was like, I literally have nothing else to do. Like, I have come to the end of all of my other resources.
Yeah.
But I have, and this was sort of the beginning of me starting to, well, maybe not starting to, but listening a little bit to that. You've got to pay attention to what is like has legs in your life right now. You gotta go towards,
Hmm.
it was already this phenomenon that was happening, and all it took was me waking up to that and being
Right.
like, I'm going to nurture this. I think, it's fascinating. Sometimes I talk to friends who are starting businesses, and they'll have all these sort of first signs of things that are really going well or taking off, and they're sort of hesitant to maybe quit their job or pursue it. And I'm like, this doesn't happen to every business. Like, if that's happening, go
Right.
for it. I'm like, do what you got to do to put your full weight behind it, because I'm so glad that that's what it took for me, I think, to
Yeah.
really take it seriously, was this like desperation. But I'm so glad that that was the mix of events, because I
But
would
you,
have missed out on something.
but you said there's some signs, right? You said like you have other friends who have businesses. You look at something, so there's some indicator
Well,
for
I had
you
people
to.
sit me down and go, you need to be doing this as a business. What is wrong with you?
But they were basing
I'm
that on
like,
what though? They were basing that on
the just insane number of people that were reading
okay,
it,
so
talking
traffic,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in our that's a good because in our world, when we talk to our fellows about stuff, and this is the stage that they're getting to now, is to understand, like, once you spend that time understanding who your customer is, and kind of like what they're looking for and how they need to receive it, then it's about what things can you do to prove that there's a true product market fit. And a big component of that is some form of traction, right? That could be money, that could be contracts. For you, that was traffic, right?
Mhm.
So you got this traffic, and then friends were saying, look, you have this traffic, this is shows that there's something real here, and so that's important. So the traffic is a number for you. Now once you said, okay, I'm gonna pay attention to this, then we'll talk to us about the process of, now you have to earn money. What did that look like for you? How
Well,
do
I
you
think,
monetize traffic?
yeah, I think one of the biggest things was what I learned later is called a bridge job, which is getting some kind of job that covers your basic necessities, so you're maybe a little bit less worried about that piece of
Right.
it. But something that gives you enough flexibility that you can spend a good amount of time. So my bridge job was, 10 hours a week. It was like $500 a month, which was my rent at the time. And
Wow.
I, I figured, and I had some money in savings. So, and I had very little, I had like nothing I spent money on basically. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay with this. And I committed a full year because I signed this contract. And with that 10-hour week, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do another full-time job probably. So, because there's a lot of travel involved. Um, I just literally started Googling how do you make money from a blog. And there was a lot of wisdom about this on the internet. And I literally signed up for every program under the sun. And I also, probably the smartest thing I did was, at the time, I really liked InStyle magazine, and I went to their website and I figured out what program they were using to make money, which is this program called ShopStyle. And I
Mm.
signed up for that. And interestingly, ShopStyle is now very much an influencer brand, but I was like one of the first people to start using it that way. And they actually flew me out to LA several times and asked me to show them how I used it so that they could develop their influencer program as one of their, by far, top 5 earners for like many years with them.
Yeah.
Uh, and so a lot of it was affiliate marketing. Some of it was, banner ads.
Mm.
Mostly for me, it was ShopStyle, which is an affiliate marketing plan.
Yeah.
So people that were already, I had so much traffic, at the time it was a PPC, pay per click. That's really outdated. That doesn't really exist anymore, but you earn a couple pennies every time somebody even clicks, for example, to go to Macy's and look at that item.
Right.
Now it's much more commission based. So it's only if they buy the item, but you earn a little bit of commission or just money back from the traffic. And
Yeah.
as you can imagine, that's a business model that you can have an unlimited number of people, right? Like if you have a lot of people clicking, then it adds up to a good amount of money. So it's an interesting, it's the
Yeah.
same amount of work as long as you have a lot of people. So
Yeah. So we tell our fellows a lot of times, like, you have to know where you're headed and what the low hanging fruit is that ladders you up into the next phase. And in understanding where you're headed, you need to put some goals out there. And when I listen to you, intuitively, you kind of did that for yourself. You're like, okay, the low hanging fruit is X. I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to do these things. And so you put some parameters in place to force you along the journey. You just weren't just haphazardly moving through the process. And so that was really cool to hear you say that. One of the things I'm interested in is like, as this thing grows, Jay's Everyday Fashion grows, I'm sure that there was some temptation to could unloosen you from the original intent and mission of Jay's Everyday Fashion. So you're trying to make fashion accessible, as you say, democratize it for the everyday woman. I'm assuming as you're building up traffic, that then there's some other brands who start to come in who can make things clearly on the other side, like Prada or something. I don't know. But talk to us about that. Like, did that occur? But the first thing I want to add is, like, at that point, like, what kind of traffic, like, what were you, like, in terms of blogs nationally or internationally, like, where were you ranked? And then how did that ranking create this down pressure possibly that may have tried to get you to unloosen from your original mission?
yeah, so there was a point, I think it was in 2013, and it's really interesting because there isn't like a billboard chart of blogs that's really official, but there was
Mm,
this company that was tracking and ranking US fashion blogs, and I was in the top 10 in the country in like 2013. And interestingly, the only one that was budget focused. So how I like to describe it
mm,
is that budget or fashion blogging is a huge pool. Budget fashion is a much smaller subset, but I was like the top fish in that subset, which has its power because brands like JCPenney and Kohl's
right.
um, are always going to want to work with you because that's their lane, and they might try to get placement on another, more fantasy blog, and sometimes they do, but typically they're, going where their shoppers are.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but it's difficult to quantify because after that, I mean, the explosion of people who started doing fashion blogs, and I wish I had kept track because I am sure that the number of people that started fashion blogs and told me I did this because I love your blog so much is got to be in the thousands. Like it was,
Hmm.
and I was always so excited. I've been a big, um, fan and follower of a lot of people who started blogs over the years, partially inspired by mine. But I mean, that just that activity is now so there's just so many people doing it. So that sort of changed the scope of things. But alongside your other question, I have a unique outlook on fashion where I just don't at all aspire to wear luxury brands. And I don't wear budget fashion even if I don't have to, or even if, how would you say that? Even if I don't have to buy budget fashion, that's what I'm going to be wearing. I will always love a deal. That's just my thrifty upbringing.
Yeah.
So even when I was making a lot of money, there's just no temptation for me to really spend it on anything, especially as a blogger. I was just constantly photographing things from budget stores that I loved. And, I literally kept my same clothing budget that I had when I started in Boston, which was $250 a month, which is an insane amount of money to some people. And if you're a luxury blogger, that won't even buy you a pair of socks. So it's all very relative. But I kept the same budget, and I don't know. It's interesting. It was just not something I'm tempted toward. But one thing that did start to change is the photography. And it went from very homemade, here's just my outfit, to these elaborate photo shoots. And like, I would literally plan out entire themes and then travel to a place.
Yeah.
And this all started around 2015 when me and my husband Joshua got married.
I remember that.
Yeah, he wanted to do the photography. He's a lifelong entrepreneur, and was kind of in between projects. And so when we got married, I was like, I think you should join me and we should take pictures and like travel, right? I feel like he's like, yeah, let's do that. So it turned into this like totally different look, because as then I discovered, and also scared me a little bit, I was obsessed with the entire everything, like theming out the exact background to the outfit. It was like I was just in a whole nother creative realm that I had no idea I was into. So it really started to change that way, even if the content itself, which is also very popular now too, I will say, there's a lot of women who wear very budget friendly clothes that have a very fantasy look.
In terms
Like
of Fashion Nova, where does that fit in there?
I know I've heard of that. I actually don't know what that is.
Oh, yeah, Fashion Nova. I think it's like part of that fast fashion kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Which is pretty fascinating. So Jay's Everyday Fashion, somehow you end up in this Nepal thing. What is that? I mean, like you just kind of laid that on me.
So I know. So I actually traveled to Haiti in 2015 with my husband. My husband actually grew up in Haiti. He's American, but grew up in Haiti. And he had this passion for a socially conscious brand that made sandals in Haiti. I thought I was going on vacation. He knew what he was doing. And I fell in love with socially conscious fashion. It was like completely changed by this trip. It was like for a board of directors, I was the only one that wasn't on the board, but I was sitting in on all the meetings, and I was just like, what can I do? What can I do? I was like so sucked in. And then I went to India in 2016 to also learn about fashion, and I incorporated a lot of that in the book that I was writing. But I've been very vocal on my blog over the years about the fact that fashion is so far behind, for example, the food industry. Like, why don't we have a Whole Foods of fashion where I can get anything I want, right? I don't have to make the decision if I'm a chef and only certain ingredients are available. I can go to Whole Foods and you can get anything that's organic and well made. With fashion, your choices are really simple and plain stuff. Take one look at my blog, you will know that is not my style at all. It's not my aesthetic. Or it's super expensive. I'm willing to pay more, but again, my thrifty side kicks in, and I love a Reformation dress, but it's like $400, and that is not me at all. I don't pay that much. So I would always say, and I experimented a little bit. I did some sponsored posts with Everlane, which I love, because you need those t-shirts to rock occasionally, but it's just not my everyday style. I wear, very colorful, usually very roughly. So I would talk about it. I would just say, it just frustrates me. I wish that there was more. I talked about the importance of fair trade and what I was learning about supply chains, but at the same time, just like, and now what do I do? Because I'm super frustrated. So a friend of mine who started her journey in 2010 around the same time as me, she is in Manhattan and has a clothing line that employs women in Nepal who are survivors of sex trafficking. It's all fair trade. And she reached out to me and said, I think in 2018, she reached out to me and said, will you design like a 10-piece collection? And I thought, I think I have to say yes to this because I'm so vocal and now I'm being given the opportunity to design it. So I'm like, I think I need to do this with you. So we released it in 2019 it was like May on her website and just on my blog. Did really well. It was really fun. And I was really impressed with how it came out, like the quality, and I wore it like crazy. I was just like, this is
Right.
amazing. I think I wasn't sure because everything is a t-shirt material still. So and everything's a solid. So not every,
Right.
design possibility is there, but I was happy and it was going well. And that summer so it was last summer, she said, oh, I found this thing online that HSN is hosting this thing called The Big Find. And it's kind of like Shark Tank a little bit. Maybe we should apply. And I had like a free day. So I made this quick audition video and sent it in. And we made the first round. And then I went live in person and pitched
Mm.
and made that round. And then she flew in and we went to a buying meeting and we made that round. And so we got a purchase order from HSN like 6 months after we started. And actually we
Oh,
hadn't
wow.
even really officially started a company together. We just did this little um, fun, collaboration. And so we got that purchase order at the end of 2019. We were supposed to launch in April, and we all know what happened next.
Yeah.
The world came to a screeching halt, and
Yeah.
it's COVID has hit Nepal really hard, as it has so many places in the world. And we did do our launch on HSN in July. I was on air, which was really exciting from Orlando, though.
Not Nepal.
Not in studio like I practiced. I did this whole studio training. But we did our launch, but it's been really difficult. So there's not a ton to update on that because we're still in like
Yeah.
and still and will be for a while. It's going to take us a little while to get back on our feet, but yeah.
What's really cool is that we tell our fellows this all the time. You can sell something and not actually have it, right? And so you went and you got this contract and you didn't have it, but I'm assuming that it was based off of the success that you had with Jade's Everyday, right? It was based off of success.
I think that was part of it. I've worked with HSN in the past, and I was surprised when I showed up to pitch day. They were like, oh, we've been looking at your Instagram. And I was like, oh, is that going to help me get a clothing line here? Because look at my Instagram. I'm just thinking like they don't know who I am, why. But
right.
I do think that definitely helped. And I have a ton of TV experience because of vlogging, and I've had some regular, recurring roles on morning shows. And I think they thought this is great because you can be the face of the brand and you have this blog and you can take great pictures.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Like that moment comparing the moment when you, out of necessity, realized, how do I take this blog that I have and monetize it? And that moment when she says, would you design a line for me and my fabric makers in Nepal, where you said, I feel like I have to do this. Both of those were necessity. Did they feel different or did they feel similar? I think I'm really curious about that.
It's a great question. What is the other one you were comparing to in the past, the old one? Oh no.
So I'm saying the moment when you knew out of necessity that you had to find a way to generate revenue out of your blog, right? Or it's like, oh, there's nothing else I can do. I've got to do this. That was a necessity moment. But then also when your friend approached you and said, would you design a line for us with these makers in Nepal? You described that also as a necessity moment. And I'm wondering if there's a similar feeling or a different feeling there.
I think they were different. It almost felt more like when I just started my blog in the very beginning, because I was at the point of thinking this isn't a viable gig. Like when I said yes to her, it was this isn't a real thing, but this will be fun and we should do this. Like, why not? She already had her successful clothing line. It's going well. I can, design some things. That sounds fun. It just sounded fun and on mission for me because of all the fair trade talk. And also a piece I haven't mentioned yet, but I'm on the board of an organization in Orlando called Samaritan Village, which is a recovery home for women who are survivors of sex trafficking. So I actually joined that board because of a fashion reason, because I was looking to sort of pour into one organization. I did a lot of pro bono blog posts for different Orlando nonprofits, but I was like, I really just want one organization, and they have a resale boutique is partly how they fund their program. And so that is how I originally reached out to them. And then I heard a survivor speak and I couldn't sleep that night. And I was like, sent them like 20 ideas, like up, like emailing them, like, we have to do something. And and then I also spent a bunch of time actually volunteering at the house and getting to know some of the women in our program very intimately. And something clicked for me when Katie reached out, because I knew that she worked with survivors, but I don't think I had really put it all together. And I don't even think I put it together when I first said yes. But when I went to pitch HSN in person, I was really emotional because I kept picturing the women in Orlando that I know personally who are survivors and just how amazing and strong they are. I mean, these are the most inspirational women. They have been through the fire and come out the other side. It is incredible. And they want the dignity of employment. Like, they want to provide for themselves. And in Orlando, that looks like we do a lot of college programs for them and different job training. But in Nepal, the leadership there, the nonprofit that started this sewing center, for them, the solution was make clothes. And that's what they've asked us to do, right? We want orders for clothes. And I just thought, this is incredible to be able to affect that same cause that I'm so passionate about here and do it with fashion on HSN. I mean, that's like so much fun. It shouldn't even be legal. Like, I mean, it's like ridiculous. So once I just think that's when I joked earlier about, I think everyone's story is this way, but they're all these puzzle pieces that fit together. And it's so interesting looking back and seeing how it all comes together, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're just every day walking your thing and you're trying to make good decisions and spend your time on good things. But I feel like as you look back and you're like, man, that's a beautiful like tapestry that's being woven, right? Like, it's just so incredible.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of different pieces. I know that's a lot of information, but it's,
No, it's good
you know,
information. Yeah, it's good. And I think the one thing I can admire about you is that um, you've been very clear about who you are and what your brand is and what the things you care about. And so because of that clarity, when we talked about this in a previous founder talk that we haven't published yet, but because of that clarity, it kept you in line with things and propelled you to the next opportunity. So like for your understanding about women, like caring for women, like you can see that through all of your stuff, right? Whether it's Jay's Everyday Fashion and helping the everyday woman, whether it's the women in Nepal, whether it's the work that you do here, is this thing about empowering women and helping them live out to be the fullest version of themselves, right? And that is consistent in all of the things you do. The only thing I'm not sure if it's consistent in the wall crawl, but because you are involved in wall crawl, I just need to throw that in there really quickly.
I was going to say, what's funny about this talk is that I'm pretty much full-time working on wall crawl, designing photo backdrops. And so I think we haven't even talked about it.
Yeah.
That's like my everyday reality right now. So that's kind of, yeah. So I think it's harder to see the mission when you look at wall crawl. And I was actually really relieved. Something I heard, I think Ben say in one of your talks that you have posted. Yes, it was Ben. He said that the mission doesn't always have to be completely clear on the consumer side. Like, they should just have a product that they love and that they're excited about, but internally it informs everything. And I think that's really the case with wall crawl. Like, I think you take one look at our Instagram and it's a photo studio experience. You just kind of have to see the pictures to understand
it's
it.
Really cool. I went through it.
Yes, 20 different backdrops that are just in your face, like rainbows and unicorns, but also interior design and some boho stuff. It's a very eclectic mix. But so as the consumer, I don't think you need to know. You're just, it's a photo studio. You can go get your photos as a family. We have pros on staff, or you can take your own. So it's admission based, and there's so many different uses for it. But for us, for my husband and I started together, there was this strange sort of itch for me that there was something more. Like, I can't explain it. Like, we were blogging, but it was just, I don't know. I think I felt like on some level, one of the pieces that went into it was I would be styling these amazing photo shoots, and I would always think about the readers that were sort of regular readers. And I would say, I wish they could be here to experience this. Like, it was so much fun. And then when you do that, there's this element of like feeling beautiful too, because you've taken the effort to do that. And I was just like, I just wish they could be here to experience this, and almost like I could put them through the photo shoot, because it just seems like too much fun to not be sharing with people. But there was also this TED Talk that really influenced us by Ingrid Fettel-Lee, and she has a book called Joyful, and it's about the science of what universally brings us joy. And joy is a very different emotion than happiness. It's a momentary sort of explosion, and it is very universal, the different elements that bring us joy. She had all this research about schools being painted with murals and how attendance would go up 25%, and the way that it affects us. And I'm over here going, I knew it. I'm like, yes, like because in my journey, it's been very much about why aesthetics are important, right?
Yeah.
And reconciling that with my faith. I'm like, I just knew there was science behind this. I'm like, yes, you go, girl. So for us, there is no greater joy, honestly, than sometimes I sort of sit in the back room and I can hear people come in. I'm not usually there on site. I mostly just design our walls. But every person that walks in the door just shrieks with joy, or they laugh, and it's so incredible to put that smile on people's faces. And in our opinions, we opened last August. We thought, what better work can we be doing in the world than to make people happy with how, negative and scary so many things are happening before COVID.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I feel like I jokingly called myself the sunshine maker the other day, because and what more can I ask for? I just think it's, I think originally I sort of thought, oh, this is a space that I'll use for my blog. And it has just become totally about, it's for other people. Like, I haven't even taken pictures on 90% of it. So
I really appreciate you telling me, walking us through that story, because, to me, I like selfie, like if you just say it's a selfie place
which, by the way, we never use that word. It's about connection.
Your husband used that word with me when he first told me about
funny. You may have seen it. There was a popular publication that used it at the very beginning that kind of, I think, you can't control what other people, they think of it as a selfie place. We're like, okay. I have actually, there's not many selfies that come out of our place. It's usually more, it's about connection. And
listen, I agree with you. What I want to say is that I appreciate you walking through there and walking us through that story, because now it makes sense. Because I do remember when Amber and I went there for the first time, when you kind of opening it up, and I thought to myself, these backdrops are really well done. And it seemed like a lot of effort went into just creating. It wasn't just a wall, but it was like, furniture and design and all this kind of stuff. And then now to hear you say that you had an experience of a set and doing these beautiful photo shoots, and that you became obsessed with it in your own journey with Jade's Everyday Fashion, like creating these sets, and then saying, I want to put other people, other women into these, give them this same experience without all that extra lift, and do it for them. It all makes sense to me now. So I appreciate you walking us through that.
It's a giant puzzle, all of it. It's like,
it is
so interesting.
The other thing I really like about that, and I'm wondering if you do it consciously or intuitively, but whenever you've described the motivation of any of the businesses, whether it's Jay's Everyday Fashion or the Eden fashion line or the wall crawl, we're talking a lot about how people feel. So we're talking about how fashion makes women feel. We're talking about the experience of joy in wall crawl. We're talking about the feeling of connecting to the women survivors of trafficking. And I think so much of a sales conversation or product development is about understanding how customers feel. And then the beauty of social enterprise is leveraging that feeling to accomplish positive impact in the world. Do you think you just kind of intuitively connect with how your customer will feel, or is that a specific process that you go through to try and go, how do people feel when they're interacting with this experience or this product?
That is a great question. I've never thought about it that way. It has to be intuitive. Yeah, I think I'm just a very feely person. Kyle, would you back me up on that?
Yeah, you definitely,
You
which
know
is a
me
good
a long
thing.
time. I think I just very soulful,
Yeah.
and I just wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't know. Yeah, I think I just very
Yeah.
much. I
Well,
just
I
hold
think that's a trait.
happy.
That's a trait for entrepreneurs, and especially social entrepreneurs, to look for ways to emulate, to understand that so much of purchase and engagement with customers is not rational but emotional. And what we talk about is social entrepreneurs have this like powerful tool to connect emotionally with their impactful mission. And if they get into a purely economic conversation with their customer, they drop that greatest tool on the ground. And so for you, whether it's through Jay's Everyday's Fashion, talking about the way the fashion makes you feel and being willing to say, I was afraid to feel a certain sort of way, and now I'm willing to, but then moving further into with your other projects, but fronting that emotional experience, I think that's probably helped you build these brands. And I think all the entrepreneurs on our call can learn from that, because you're in the middle of sales and customer discovery conversations, and it can feel mechanistic. But Jeanette's story is a real reminder that it's not. It's like layered and emotional as well.
Yeah, and I will say I'm very lucky that I have a co-founder in my husband, because he's very methodical. He did a lot of market research. He went downtown and surveyed hundreds of people on the street and said, if we opened a place that you could go in for $25 and take all the photos you want, and it kind of looked like this, would you buy it? How much would you pay? You know, he did all this research and is amazing. He's running all of the operations. I mean, he's really, I like to joke, he's HR, IT, operations, CEO, and I just make the place pretty. And that is a very much almost a necessity for me a little bit, because I tend to be in a headspace a little bit more of like dreaming up backdrops and just wanting to make people smile, and like coming up with funny captions on Instagram, and like just being a lot more creative, which is so interesting. I hope one of the things that stands out on that side of the story is that I thought I was a type A 9 to 5 person. Like I had myself so wrong in my 20s that if I hadn't sort of followed those little intuitive like things that I wanted to explore, I probably would be in, you know, a corporate job, doing a good job, but just not where I really should be. And one of my favorite things to say when I'm on a panel or something is that out there in the waters where you have to rely on a source that's bigger than yourself and that you are just a little bit uncomfortable is where the magic happens. Like there is an alternate universe where I'm still in a corporate job and I'm doing a great job and I'm climbing
Or
that
maybe
ladder.
not.
But this one is so much scarier, but it's so exciting. And ultimately how Joshua and I decided to start Wall Crawl, because we self-funded it. This has been the most insane year, to be honest. Like I did not know what went into opening a brick and mortar. It's been a lot of growing and stretching, but for us, we thought we'll regret this if we don't do this, and we cannot live with that regret, and it's absolutely worth it. We just felt like, for me, I was dreaming backdrops. Like I would go to bed at night and I would just have to wake up and sketch in the middle of the night. It was insane. It just like, I guess we should do this now. Like we were, you know, it was so interesting.
Right.
So, and it's, it's been a challenging year, but it's showing a lot of promise. We were very busy this summer, mostly sold out, and we have a ton of people who've been contacting us from all over the country that want to open locations, and we're sort of tiptoeing into that because we're still, figuring things out. And so it's just been,
Yeah.
it's showing a lot of promise, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Hope
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I figured it would work. I mean, like, you're attached to it. I understand your husband. I know him and as an entrepreneur.
You're talented.
Yeah. So and what's really interesting is to hear you talk about how um the process, like, although like you didn't go through Accelerator, like how you describe the process is very similar to what we talk about around here with our fellows. And being in early stages, that the first step is really understanding, is doing customer discovery, right? Getting out there, understanding what people want, asking the right questions so you can fill out this picture about who they are. And then once you do that, then it's about then how do you deploy that solution or whatever that thing is that you're going to create into the world. And y'all went through that process. You went through the customer discovery process. You went through the understanding of what we talk to our fellows about is understanding, like, where your blind spots are, right? Like, what are you good at and what you're not good at. You fortunately found in your husband the B side, the business side, but you clearly feel like the impact that, they have this thing called a social link canvas at the very top is impact or mission and impact. And that's critical. They're number one and number two, and that have to be in place for everything else to work. And so you clearly feel like that you're the one and two, and then Joshua fills in the back piece, and all of it is needed. It couples together really, really nicely. But like we tell our fellows, like, if you don't understand finance, if you don't understand marketing, if you don't understand this, it's important that you find someone that can complement you or fill in that gap. And so it was really refreshing to hear you talk about how that process in your own journey. Before we move to Q&A, I just want to ask you a couple questions about, are there any nuggets, like golden Jeanette nuggets, that you would like to give to any entrepreneur on this call or any entrepreneur that's listening to this? Any nuggets of wisdom, advice that you would give them?
Well, it's funny. Normally I think I would be like, oh, I'm on the spot, I don't have anything, but I was writing something, preparing for a speaking engagement yesterday, and somebody once asked me on a panel, what was the number one thing you did to make your business a success? And they were speaking more to Jay's Everyday Fashion. And I said, I started it. That's the number one thing. The fact that I mean, you go from 0% chance of it working to much greater chances, even though, we all know not every business makes it. But I'm like, I can't think of a single factor more so than I had a random idea on a Saturday afternoon, and I went and took a bunch of pictures of my work outfits and posted them on a Facebook page. Like, that was the thing, because until you do that, until you take those steps, like, there's just no.
Yeah.
Is
there, this may be putting you on the spot. Is there one thing that you did that you wouldn't do, that you would advise entrepreneurs not to do?
With Jay's Everyday Fashion?
Or just in general, well, with any of your businesses.
So many, right? That's why, I don't want to make it sound too glamorous with Wall Crawl the last year, because I'm telling you, I feel like I have been stretched so far. Like, I feel like I got a college education in 1 year's time or something. Like, it's like unbelievable. I think for me, more, and this will resonate probably with COVID a little bit too, is to just find peace with how things are unfolding. I think I love saying all the time that stress is the gap between what you think should be happening and what's really happening. And you have control over that. If you can accept that this is the place that my company's at right now, and this is the way that the river is flowing, and you can be in tune with that, you will be so much happier. Your company will be better for it. And I think instead of pushing against it, you could just kind of go with the flow. And that doesn't mean not being active and trying things, but I think that there's a sort of natural unfolding to life. And if you can find that rhythm, um, I feel like that's almost, when you look at my journey, like the secret to success is like
Yeah.
just following that thread and trying to be in the river, going with it and not pushing against it, and trying to
Yeah.
have things
That's
happen
dope.
exactly the way that we want them to unfold.
Yeah, that's dope. I'm opening it up now to our fellows. I'm sure there's some questions out here. Uh, who wants to? Anybody? Any of you have some questions? Okay, Morgan, there you go.
Want to thank you. This has been amazing. I have a question. I really resonated with what you said about like Reformation. They sell these like $300 dresses, rainbow dresses, love them, but it's not really sustainable or attainable. But then you've got companies like Everlane who sell $50 black tees, which are great, but I agree with you. I'm a person who enjoys fashion and thinks it should be colorful. When you launched Eden and Ivy with the goal of like making ethical fashion more attainable, what were some of your thought processes and how do you kind of see it unfolding in the future?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, my first thought was how many rainbow colors can we get, and can everything have a ruffle? And literally, our best-selling hydrangea tea has not one, not two, but 3 ruffles on each sleeve. I got them to explore getting into bodysuits because I'm really into like high-waisted jeans. Because again, if you're like, I tend to be on the, wanting to the more trendy things. So for me, it is still limiting a little bit because we are, for the most part, still using solid colors in a t-shirt type material, which is organic cotton, which is fabulous. And there is a time and a place for that in your wardrobe. They help your statement pieces look great, as I like to say. But I think the sky's the limit, though. I mean, I just want to see, and I don't know that I'm the person to bring this to fruition, but I hope I can be a part of it, is that Whole Foods of fashion. I just want there to be a choice for everyone. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, as it should be, the way it is at Whole Foods. But you can get everything that your chef's heart desires. You can get it organic. And I just want the same thing for fashion. That's not a gazillion dollars. So that's the hope. Yeah. But yeah, I'm a huge Reformation for inspiration. It's beautiful.
Now that I think about it, the whole ruffle thing, I was, as you were talking, I was going back in my mind and I was thinking to myself, is that true? And I realized it is true. Like, you do wear a lot of ruffles and a lot of, colors and things like that. And so that's really fun.
That's why I joked at the beginning when you said you look all dressed up, and I was thinking about what I wore to your wedding, which was a very dramatic emerald green long dress that probably had like 20 ruffles on it. Like, not for a wallflower. Not at all.
Any other questions at all?
I have a question. I don't have a question. You are in a totally different industry that truly inspires and enrich people's life. You have made some great difference. But something common, I know you kept going back to a lot of things that were common, but I think what I notice here is joy. I would get on the record and say that you are probably the first most happiest speaker for this rally. And I've also noticed something common with everything you did was that you truly enjoy it. I mean, you have enjoyed it. When I speak to others, I think if you enjoy something so much, it just succeeds. It's not work. And I know you said you are a sunshine, but I think you should be the poster child of being happy at what you do, because I think that's where the journey has been seemed so quick and easy for you, even though you put so much work for it.
Well, that is very kind. Thank you. That just made me very happy. I think that I always joke that I have a little bit of amnesia potentially, because We were actually up late last night installing 2 new walls at Wall Crawl. And while we're doing it, my back was killing me. I literally had picked up and moved like 40 pumpkins over and over again yesterday by going to buy. And I was in so much pain, and I was like, this is awful. Why do I even do this? And then as soon as it's over, like this morning, I woke up in this like, oh, the wall came out so well, and I'm like ready to do it again. like what is wrong with me? That's funny. Yeah. So I love that you said that, because it's true. I do truly love it. There are very not glamorous pieces of it for sure. It is a lot of work, but I do at the core truly enjoy it. And I struggle a little bit when I'm not enjoying something. I think I have basically, for the most part, retired from Jews Everyday Fashion as of last December. And it just wasn't as fun for me anymore. And I don't exactly know why. I don't know if it was just the repetitiveness of the same thing. It had been almost 10 years. So, but or if it was just this passion that was dying to get out of me to create all these walls, and it was taking up a lot of time, and I was enjoying that more. So I do tend to follow the joy.
Follow the joy.
Yes.
So we have time for one more question. Anybody has a question?
Jeanette, I just wanted to thank you for your work in human trafficking, particularly with survivors. I don't want to miss the opportunity to express gratitude for that. I think it's incredible, and I don't want to get too much into making it about how we're trying to address the problem, because I want to keep everything really upbeat. But
It's a very serious and not fun issue. So I think at times it feels interesting to combine that with fashion, and then at the same time, gosh, it makes my heart happy that we could do something so fun and joyful that gives back. Like it's
light in the darkness, and focusing on the light is what we should do. So thank you.
Well, Jeanette, I really obviously appreciate you being here. You've been a joy in this conversation. And what was that line again that you said about the stress thing? Can you give us that one? Drop that on us one more time. Stress
is the gap between what you think should be happening and what's really happening.
Words of wisdom. So we're going to end it right there. We really appreciate you joining us today for this edition of Founders Talk, Jeanette.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so good to be here.